Hi everyone, my name's Claire and I'm one of the senior psychologists here at Monash IVF. I'm down in Victoria at the moment, sitting on Boonwurrung country. Lovely to be here tonight, and thanks Lisa, and definitely not secure voice, that's for sure. Tonight, I guess I'm here to talk about the emotional support that Monash IVF can provide and that you might find that you need throughout treatment. In terms of the types of counselling we provide at Monash IVF, part of that is what we call pre-treatment counselling, and Lisa mentioned that before, and there are different requirements in different states. So sometimes we do this counselling before you start treatment. And we also offer supportive counselling throughout the journey as well. In terms of pre-treatment counselling, this is really, I guess, it's not therapeutic counselling like you're sitting on the couch like they do in the movies or anything like that. It's more what we call implications counselling. And so we're talking to people about their choices and decision-making. We talk to people about the emotional and psychosocial impacts of treatment and the possible outcomes. So trying to think about those types of things. We talk to people sometimes about the relevant state legislations and any consent sort of requirements and things like that. We will talk about sort of expectation management, and we'll talk about general coping through treatment and how people can cope. And we'll talk a little bit about patients' history as well, because of course their past experiences of course going to impact the way they experience the treatment process. So we'll talk about that and how they might best cope and what the clinic can do to change things up and support people through that as well. Where treatment involves donation to eggs or sperm or embryos, we'll also talk about the impact on the donors and the recipients, their families and others. We'll talk about disclosure of the donor conception to children, family and others, the boundaries between the donors and the recipients and their expectations and things like that. And where treatment involves surrogacy, so more extensive counselling, this type of pre-treatment counselling is often required. And the counselling we're working with, the team is comprised of psychologists and social workers with specialised fertility knowledge as well. In terms of our support counselling, we do provide support counselling throughout the fertility journey. And so, people might need support throughout their journey just in terms of a wellbeing plan. They might need some assistance with decision-making or, talking about their treatment options and those types of things. Some people might just need a place that they can feel open to vent and debrief and those sorts of things. And of course, whilst you're undertaking treatment, life can happen at the same time. And so you might be dealing with other issues that are kind of impacting treatment, and they're impacting those other issues as well. And sometimes people, might be considering whether to end treatment or move on to other different types of treatment and things like that. And so we can provide support around that process as well. Decision-making, I guess, is a big one. And there's different stages of this for different people. It might be deciding whether or not to do treatment at all. It might be, differing views with a partner if you've got one. It might be some of the practical social considerations that you need to, I guess, weigh up and balance up. And so decision making is something that we're often talking about with patients, and that's definitely something that we can do in the counselling space. As well, we have, I guess, a lot of emotional considerations in the treatment process. It's really normal to feel anxious about starting IVF treatment and different types of treatments and the side effects of medications and what that's going to be like. And I think a lot of people come as well with worry about the possible treatment outcomes. where do we sort of sit? I guess we're trying to aim for this realistic hopefulness. We want to have realistic expectations, but of course we're not going to go through something like this without hope. Waiting for test results can be a really challenging time as well. And so, and this whole experience can feel quite isolating and things like that. So being able to talk to somebody who knows about that and can kind of normalize it and tell you about, everybody else's experience through this can be really helpful, I think. And resilience. I was here to talk about resilience tonight as well. And I guess, if we think about what resilience is the ability to bounce back when we face challenges in our lives, to bounce back when things don't go as planned or we'd hope. And I mean, fertility treatment, really definitely needs that resilience, right? Even if you're just looking at fertility treatments tonight and trying to work out if this is a pathway that we might go down and those types of things, you've probably already faced these challenges, right? So fertility treatments and that it is a challenge. And I think everybody here tonight will have already faced challenges along that road and shown some level of resilience, and so I guess trying to build up that resilience can help you cope with any challenges that come along in fertility treatment. And certainly counselling can help you to kind of set those expectations and help you support you along the way in that too. In terms of how you might build resilience, because I know, it's hard to think about that sometimes. I guess one of the first things is to think about filling up your fuel tank. I'll get you to move to the next slide. Really filling up your emotional fuel tank. Like you can't be resilient if you're out of fuel. And I think I see a lot of people who come into this and they're already kind of exhausted, exhausted by treatments or exhausted by all of the lead up to treatment and all of those sorts of things. So looking for ways that you can fill your, emotional fuel tank. And it's going to be different for different people. But, you've got to work out what works for you. What brings fuel into your tank? Spending time with friends or family, or not spending time with those people. Binge watching your favourite TV show, guided meditations, getting outdoors. I don't know, if you're a foodie, cooking something new, going to a nice restaurant, whatever it is that works for you. Important to keep your fuel tank up. You cannot have resilience if you don't have that fuel. I think another big thing is allowing some space for your emotions and reactions to news and challenges. We can often go into treatment feeling hopeful and excited, and I think that's completely normal. I think completely normal alongside that is to start to feel worry and anxiety, and so we have to allow ourselves some space to feel those things and not be too hard on yourself. Often people get stressed during treatment and they get stressed about being stressed and those sorts of things. So trying not to be hard on yourself. It's normal to feel these things in this time, and let's give ourselves some space to actually feel those things. And I guess another key one might be to think about keeping a balanced view of life. I think it's easier than you might think to get to a stage where you kind of expect bad news, right? And if you're someone here tonight who's been trying and you're thinking about starting treatment and those types of things, you can get to the point where you're expecting bad news and you sort of get filtered and can only see all the kind of negative aspects. So sometimes we find ourselves frightened of good news, frightened of joy because we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And we're worried that those things are going to be taken away. So making an effort to practice gratitude, celebrate the small wins, the good moments, can slowly help to change that. And not having, fertility treatments as the sole focus of everything, trying to keep a balance up. And I think that's my next point really is around that, keep up other life pursuits. it can be hard if our identity as wanting to be a parent is being challenged so much through this. And so trying to keep up other life pursuits. So we've got those other parts of our identity, other parts of ourselves, such as work, your social circle, your fitness, your hobbies, all of those sorts of things, trying to keep up that balance. I think one of the biggest places that anxiety and worry and all of that can live is when we're thinking, ruminating over the past, and when we're thinking 10 steps into the future. So trying to gently keep yourself in the present moment, not thinking too much about the what if this happens and what if that happens and da-da-da. It can be overwhelming, right? So a mindfulness practice can help with this. And there's lots of apps available out there these days to help with mindfulness if that's something you're interested in. But otherwise, turn to a hobby that engages you, something that really draws you in. It might be looking back to the past in the hobbies and things you're interested in, but exercise, gardening, art, cooking, music, all of those sorts of things can be really helpful to try and keep yourself in the present. A big one that I'm a big one on is enlisting a support network. You do need support through this. So choose the right people and tell them what you need. Some people in your life might give you support and make you feel good when you see them. We've all probably got some drainers in our life that drain us of all life force. So let's stick with the people that are refueling our tanks. Tell us what you need from them. If you're feeling too much pressure from your support group, give them fewer specifics. Don't tell them exactly when your treatment's happening and all of those sorts of things. So think about it actively and try and enlist that support work in the best way that those people can help you. And use your professionals. Be informed, ask questions. Lisa was just talking about the nurse inquiry line there. Monash IVF patients have got their fertility nurse, their counsellors, their fertility specialists, the scientists. They're all ready to help you. So make sure you kind of get the most out of them. All right. And I think all of those things together help build resilience. But, if you are looking for support, there's lots of options out there. Obviously, at Monash IVF support counselling, and that can be done, in person, phone or Zoom, and it might differ between locations. We do have some support groups that, we're offering. Again, it might be not always available in your location, but, you could certainly ask about Monash IVF support groups. And, there is always the option to look at external counsellors. So you can go to your GP and get a mental health care plan, and that will give you Medicare rebate access to psychologists as well. And I think the next slide too has some other support organisations that might be of help to you. And we've just finished building this mental health and wellbeing toolkit at Monash IVF in Victoria. It's got lots of, tips and strategies and ideas and things. And if you are in need of support though, out of hours and those and weekends and that, and if you're in need of urgent support, of course, there's always a lifeline, and the phone number for that is 131114. So 13 11 14 for